Okay, thank you, Kelly. Let's call this meeting to order. We do have at least one amendment that I know of to the previous minutes. Deb, do you want to talk about that with the group? You're muted again, poor Deb. Okay, I'll tell. She'll come back on. I'll mention it. It was something, one of the things I remember was something simple. It was there was a mistake in the Title IX. It was listed as accidentally Title IV. So Deb suggested to move it back to Title IX. And Kelly, what was the other? There was one other little thing, wasn't there?
Yeah, I can pull that up.
Okay.
Yeah, that shows how smart I am with Roman numerals.
Oh no, you're smart. It's just there's a lot of things going on. You know, and the Greeks had all these complicated, really sophisticated systems too.
And then what Ms. Hibner said during the conversation with Deb that um, Ms. Hibner stated that there isn't a location to house the composter at MHS. I need to add at MHS so that
I
it's
liked that edit,
clear.
Deb. Thank you. I thought that was a key point. Deb, do you want to try and talk so we know if you can talk?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. If you want to leave your microphone on, if you're making silly noises, we'll promise to tell you.
It'll just be my cat next to me here.
Well,
so.
that's okay. I'm allergic, but through the camera, it will not bother me.
Right.
Okay, I think those are excellent amendments to the minutes. Do we have any other proposed amendments? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I so move.
Thank you, Carmen. Do we have a second? Deb?
Second.
And all in favor?
Yes.
Right? Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we will move on to public comments. Do we have any this evening? Kevin, welcome.
I am just trying to get my video up here. There we go.
Sure.
I'll put my hand down. I just want to pass on a few thoughts and comments and observations. As I think all of you know, that I led a 350 Middleton effort to try to get the school board to devote money from the artificial turf upgrade, if you want to call it that, to climate projects. And that failed by one vote last Monday, where they voted 5-4 to move ahead with the artificial turf. There are a lot of bureaucratic hoops that has to go through in the next, who knows how long. It actually depends on how long the bureaucracy takes. But there may be other opportunities to get that revisited, or at least reconsidered. We were particularly against it because of the chemicals that come off the turf and the microplastics. From a safety standpoint, there's a higher incidence of injuries. And of course, we're really concerned about the runoff of all those chemicals and the microplastics into the Pheasant Branch watershed, and then from there on down to the Yahara Lakes and eventually to the Gulf of Mexico, some of it. Also, make a comment that I'm glad to see that the 100K has been made available for sustainability matching grants this year. I think we had some money in the budget before, it got taken out to balance the budget, and now some money from last year has been made available for this year, and that's terrific. I'm really heartened to see the resumption of Sustainable U, and there are lots of really good topics. I'm looking forward to those. I'm not sure who set those all up, but good work. It's also great to see some movement on the streetlight LED conversion finally. Coincidentally, the school district has almost all their lighting throughout the district in LEDs except for the stadium, and they're going to convert those in the upcoming year. Their fiscal year, I think, begins in September. McFarland has their net zero energy public safety center. And by starting down a very sustainable road, they've been able to apply for IRA money. And if they haven't already received it, they're very seriously expecting it. So I don't know if people were aware of that. But to my knowledge, that's one of the first actual realizations of getting the IRA to work and provide 30% rebates. And then just a couple other observations. I hope all of you, or at least Kelly, has gotten a notice from Kathy Kuntz about the Wisconsin Schools and IRA funding webinar on February 29th and the IRA elective pay webinar on March 6th. Those are actually more information getting out to the public to help them understand how the IRA works. And I did confirm today that both Superintendent Minogue and Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations, Jared Rosing, along with their Director of Finance and Operations, are planning to participate in those, which is a good thing. I don't know if they ever had a conversation with Kathy, but they implied that she had contacted him about it. And also, Bob Owen said that, according to Kelly, the city now has a building maintenance manager, and he is preparing to start planning a HVAC replacement program. That's good news, and hopes that he'll opt for heat pumps instead of more gas furnaces. Likewise, the school district has a long range capital maintenance plan, and they have boilers and coolers with money set aside to replace those beginning in the fall. Those are expensive and, of course, heavily fossil fuel using equipment. And I'm hopeful they'll look at cleaner alternatives. That's it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your comments. Okay. So let's move on to the Kelly's staff report. As usual, an excellent write-up. What questions do we have for Kelly, or comments, feedback, anything? Laura.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate that staff report. That was all very illuminating and everything. And I'm just commenting on, I guess, the request in number 3. So if you want to scroll that out on your screen for, I guess, the communications director wanted ideas. Where's that at? Or have I done I had it marked as staff report. I'm not jumping the gun, am I? Yeah.
No, you're correct. Yeah, it wasn't so much that he wanted me to reach out and get ideas, but if you have them, I can relay them to him and we can work together. If there's anything the committee deems, like something they really want to push this year or work on communications wise that rises to the top of your interests, let me know. You don't have to let me know tonight, but just as we go along. I have a slew of meetings with Brent in the next month or two covering topics like Earth Day events, stormwater events, all kinds of stuff. So I feel like there's a push internally to get the word out on what we're already doing and we're working on. So I just want you to know that avenue is open and I can work with Brent on that.
Okay,
Kelly,
so then basically, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, if you wanted any ideas, just type them up and send them to you, type of thing.
Sure, yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be great, and I can go over them with Brent or ask for more guidance from you, or yeah.
Okay.
Kelly, would you just, I can't remember what Lynn knew, our new member who's, graphic visual communicator. Would you mind just filling him in on who Brent is? He's fairly new, what kind of things he's been doing, just a short summary.
Sure. Brent was hired, I believe about a year ago. Brent McHenry is our communications director for the city. And, he feeds, the communications out from the city to the media, to all the social media listserv accounts, and helps us work on strategy to communicate initiatives and things like zoning code rewrites and big things in the city. But I feel like we still could use some really great graphic design, but I also don't want to take advantage of Lynn because he's on the committee. I'm really mindful of how much work and time it takes to do your job at UW. So we'll discuss those things as they come about. But Brent is someone that the committee can, interact with or go through to communicate. But I still feel like if we have a really big initiative that the committee wants to work on that has a definite graphic that could be attached to it, we often hire out for that, for graphic design.
Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Is NOMO May something new?
It's not new. I think this year will be the third year of it. And it seems to me that every year it sneaks up on us because, it takes 3 or 4 months to really plan almost anything if you're going to do any kind of communication or public relations thing. And because of the holidays, it's like NOMO May comes up in early May, but really you have to be having meetings about that starting in January or December. So I just feel like it's always kind of been like that, but it's something that I would like to work on more in future years. There's an Alder Hanairo, who used to be the chair of this committee, is really interested in NOMO May and pollinator habitat. Well, I mean, a lot of people are on the committee. And Alder Hanairo will often draft a resolution that we read, and then we've done a few things around that in the city, but nothing substantial. And I've never tracked data on residents or citizens who are taking part in NOMO May, although I see the signs around town because we do offer yard signs. But those graphics could definitely be improved upon.
I had an additional comment about NOMO May that isn't even about graphics, but yeah, I'm excited to help there and create clarity and more awareness. I'll just throw it in for later that the city could increase pollination by maybe altering how they mow grasses that are around some of the water runoff ponds around Graber Pond. So some of the community has tried to protect these grasses in Misty Valley, and typically a mowing crew just has a mowing schedule. And so it's just a topic that I became aware of, that when I saw these grasses go into full bloom, it looked like they were perfectly doing a great job on pollination. But, here comes the mower and takes it back down. And I know there's maybe a balance of making sure the water runoff works, but it looked like something not the public needed to be aware of, but maybe the mowing crew. So I'll just throw that out.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on that. I know that Kylie Scherer, who's the Parks and Rec, who's the overall public lands manager for the city, she's doing some test sites or some pilot sites this year in public parks to not mow them. And, she's really supportive of all that. I mean, she wants to maintain the fields and things that people use for running and playing and that kind of stuff, but she gets the idea of finding places where you don't have to mow. And then I do know, I am aware of the citizen comments about Graber Pond and what happened there. And so that might be a conversation to have with Brad Hopwood and the parks together, about that mowing schedule and how that might be handled this year. I know they really did hear from a lot of residents about it.
Okay.
Kelly, thank you. That's a great question. Kelly and Lynn, do you mind if I took notes on this? Do you mind if we take this offline now, just in the interest of time? And Kelly, may I start an email string with Brad, Kylie, you, me, and Lynn, just to discuss?
Yeah, let me maybe start with me and Lynn and let me see if I should
Perfect.
be looping in Kylie or Brad.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Deb, you're next. And then somebody else had their hand up. Who was that? Dean,
Yeah, never mind.
back down. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Deb, you're
Well,
up.
I'll be really fast, being that you're trying to shut this down. So May 9th is going to be David Drake talking about modifying your yard to be more wildlife friendly. So maybe we could couple that with No Mow May. In my mind, planting flowers would be even better than just not mowing grass. You know, seems to be pollinators like flowers a lot too. And so anyway, if we could couple the two, that's all I'm going to say.
Do you want to be on the email string?
Sure.
Okay. We're still under quorum on that, so we should be okay. Kermit,
Hi, thanks. A couple of questions. One quick comment regarding Lynn being roped into the graphics issue, and that is, of course, there's always the possibility, might there not be, of getting student volunteers, student project workers to maybe collaborate with the committee or with Brent. I just throw that into the mix. I suspect that was perhaps at the back of your mind already, Lynn, but I just know that that's theoretically often talked about, but we don't always have the energy and the connections to make that kind of thing happen.
that's a good point. And Lynn, I've mentioned to you before, I know you were going to talk with UW about a couple things, but we do have a $10,000 operating budget that we can spend on things like graphic design. Some of it is allocated, but right now there's plenty of money there. So, you know, you can comment now, or we can again take that offline as well and follow up later.
Yeah, I can comment now. Just briefly, I had a conversation with the art chair at UW Art, and there is a mechanism for doing this. It's called a graphic design practicum for students that will do work for industry and to get experience. So it's there. So that's good to hear. And I'm involved in, how does that roll out? It's typically a specific class, but I've created lessons in my own classes that involve projects for UW Health and things like that.
Wonderful. Okay,
That'd be excellent to capitalize on. Thanks.
it would. Yeah.
A couple of quick questions regarding the staff report. Again, let's see, I noticed there's the green tier bill that was alluded to, and the SJR6 or Senate Joint Resolution. I know Kevin and the 350 crew might be better poised to try to do some lobbying or action, but is there anything that has been thought of or considered for the committee to call for or do in response to both of those situations? And just, anyways, Kelly, you might have some thoughts first off, but then anybody else?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts right off the top of my head because I'm not sure what the committee's role could be. I'm thinking more like legally, not because you couldn't speak out about it or something. I think as individuals, you could always write letters to your representatives about, that kind of thing. And I encourage you to do so. But I can learn more. I'll learn more from the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually, where I can ask that question if there's any action items that I could pass along to local government committees.
Okay,
I'd appreciate that. Yeah.
thank you.
And let's see, I noticed the Energy Efficiency Navigator is on the staff report. And then I also noticed that I missed the meeting with the workforce development or workforce housing that Kelly, you presented at. Any addendum, any update from that experience? How did that go? And
I actually put my presentation off for tonight's workforce housing meeting. We had a quite tragic situation in the city last night where in that Lakeview complex, which is a city project, there was a homicide last night, and 2 Slock Trail students were killed, and I'm reeling from that. My children go to Slock Trail and we're classmates, so I didn't feel that it was appropriate to bring that project to talk about it. I don't know why. I just couldn't collect my thoughts tonight, and I can't
Yeah.
say why or not, but I thought I'm
Understood.
going to put this off for a month once I have my thoughts collected, and it's just too soon to even talk about it. So that's why I didn't speak out about that. But I do think all of these issues are somewhat interrelated, and we'll get back to it in a month or so.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, and thanks for giving us that update as well then.
Yeah, there's a lot in the news. I don't want to say anything that's misinformation, but there are, what's in the news is what's in the news right now. You can find out more information, but and I'm sorry to answer that question that way. I don't mean to draw too much attention to such a tragedy, but it's our community, all of us on this call.
Right.
I'm sure all of us will be reeling and dealing with this for months. So that's that.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kelly. Yeah. Okay. I don't see any other hands. So are we good right now for Kelly's staff report? Q&A? Seems like it. Okay, let's move on to the Sustainable Purchasing Policy Implementation Plan. So Dean, Laura, and I and Kelly have been working on this. So why don't I mean, I can talk, but it'd be great if, Laura or Dean, do you want to give a summary? Or both of you want to chime in on it?
Laura, please take it away to start now. I'll kibitz.
Okay, well, in a positive way, I found it to be similar to the previous meeting that we had with Parks and Rec, and it was good to hear that Public Works and all the committees that were involved this time were also very interested in doing their part for sustainability. Had a lot of good questions and comments, but basically it kind of came back to, we've got this push and pull between not having too much stuff that's overwhelming, but that they want, more guided direction. And kind of my takeaways from that, is I think we need to start, as I said last time, and I elaborate a little bit with a kind of a preliminary audit. And I think that the parks, or not the parks, excuse me, just the city staff kind of agreed with that, because how do you know where you're going to go until you know where you are? So one idea is to update the plan that we have a little bit, change some of the language a little bit to address some of their concerns. But really the important part was we need to do an audit and create a baseline to learn where we're at. Another thing that it actually came from one of the staff members themselves, they said, well, maybe we need to identify, the top 3 purchases, or, what's our biggest environmental impact, these purchases. And he just kind of made a comment that, well, my top 3 might differ from yours. It's like, well, let's find out what those top 3 are. So I, thought, well, maybe we should just do a little basic, survey, 1, 2, 3 questions type of things to find out, what do you see as the highest priority items, or how would you categorize, because prioritization is something that they wanted. How might you recommend, so that we're still in that phase of not telling them what to do, but discovering together how to do it and how to track progress. So we got both some ideas to help them do their job, tied together, things like, selecting a green choice if they're going through Amazon Business for things, little things like that when they're making purchases. And then some ideas on how to help them out to identify, a way to really, I guess you would say, integrate it. So that's kind of the overall that I got. So Dean, you want to elaborate a little bit?
related to that, I thought in regard to your first point, uh, that people really wanted to have measures that made sense to them and didn't take, a gazillion hours to figure out.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple of places like that. Like we have these goals over time to get to X%, and X% of what? We don't necessarily have a baseline measure at this point. And then the related issue is there is a little bit of competitiveness around your making sure that each part of the city city departments is being asked for sort of their fair share. The measures should be accurate and fair across sites, across departments, because they're all asking for chunks of the same budget. And so we should be able to figure out a way to be helpful and work with them in creating good measures.
And I think we can do that. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think that it's an impossible task at all. I saw willing partners
Right.
that wanted
Yeah,
to work on this. So we're really at the next step stage where we're tying some things together. Yeah, so that's, I mean, questions, thoughts, comments?
I would just like to point out that this, has been a long road so far. I would like to point out to the group, and Laura and Dean have done an incredible job and a lot of hours and time, and Kelly too, getting things to where they are now. And I think even though we're not where we want to be, yet, we are working in a very, I hate to use the word sustainable, but, we're working in a way that, makes a lot of sense. And so we are working very collaboratively in a way that is going to minimize resistance down the road. So we're going to get a very good, we believe we'll get a very good result in where the work will actually get, or the plan and the work will happen versus pushback or just sitting on a shelf. So we are making good progress, even though it may seem like it's not fast.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I would like to
go slow to go fast. Yeah, Laura, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to just kind of add to that. It's like on one hand, when we first started it, I was thinking, let's just let's write this policy and get it done, move on. That's not going to happen. You can't just write the policy and make it work. You have to work with the people who have to implement it. So I think that's kind of a little fallacy that we can put together a 2-page overview and they'll figure it out and everything will get done, or that we can put together this 50-page manifesto and they'll comb through it and get it done. We got to create this thing together so they know, all right,
Yep.
What's happening. And a lot of that doesn't show up, in an I think in a little IP packet that we can then send to the Common Council. It's something where we're just going to have to go. We're going to have to talk to them, work in person, get like a two-way street feedback and help. And so that's where I see this going, in that it's definitely a co-created thing, and that in the first year, it might just be a real messy, create the baseline, create our first audit annual report. And even if it's, 5 different annual reports from 5 different department heads, from that, we may be able to pull out a template that then they can easily, follow going forward. So I've given up the thought that we're just going to be able to put this together and chuck it out. We're going to have to work on it together, figure it out, and streamline it as we go. And it's just a messy process, and that's
But the
kind of
good
way I
news
think it
is,
has to be.
Now, the other good news is that people seem to be very enthusiastic about doing that work.
I
much
got that
more than-
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
good point. Good
And
point.
and then I'll stop. One thing I would like to loop back to is to get this out to the public. Kelly was talking about, ask that Brent McHenry is, he's getting stuff ready for, all the different weeks that he was looking at to get information out. I think just getting some of the information out that actually a lot's going on, even some of the stuff we've, found out. I don't know if we need a sustainability week or something. That might help some of the people that are concerned that nothing's happening, that actually there's a little bit more than you think might be happening. And we're working on this. It's just bigger than you would imagine. So here are the little nuggets that are happening. So one of the things that popped up when you were talking about No Mo May was, one of the questions I could ask in the survey is, do you have any pilot projects going on? We could keep it strictly focused on the, implementation policy plan, and I don't want to go too far out of that, but all this stuff is interconnected. And if they're like, well, I don't know if I can purchase electric blowers yet, but I have a pilot program testing them out to see if they will work and hold up underneath commercial conditions. That's something we could report and get it out to the public so they realize things are happening.
Yeah,
it's on the radar.
Just to riff off that a little bit, Laura, it struck me that we were talking an awful lot about annual reports, so we don't hear about all these things that are going on month by month. And as as one of those people who's anxious for progress, it's a long time between annual reports and little updates about things that people are doing right along, but nobody really knows about until, maybe the end of the year, maybe, is important. So
That's a good
So we
point.
could, so we could work that into like a survey thing where maybe it just comes around, one line, done.
Right.
And we can take that offline, but to the rest of the committee, stuff's happening, even if there's no paper that proves it.
Yeah. Kermit, why don't you jump in?
Sure, thanks. A couple of questions or thoughts. I noticed that last month there was a report about SPP and the meeting you had, and now this month, what I'm hearing sounds a lot like some of the points that were made in last month. So, was there a new group that you met with this month? And the Parks Department, was it? Okay. And so it sounds like we're getting the same feedback. There's a consistent pattern developing as far as we want to do it, but we need help to do it. And is that your takeaway then too? Like,
Yes. There was in fact, we already have an internal document that's going around, that I kind of typed up, which I think dovetails pretty nicely or similarly to Kelly's, that we're hearing the same thing from multiple department heads. So Kelly, you want to jump in and elaborate on that any? But I'm hearing similar stuff.
Sorry, I was writing in the chat who all we've met with.
Oh, yeah. I'll jump in quick just to mention, Kermit, before Kelly says that, we met with Parks and we met with, we met with Brian Gatto and Finance, but then the big meeting, Kermit, that we had was Public Works, Water, all the big energy, like the really big energy users in one meeting that Kelly set up. And so that was
a good meeting,
a really important meeting to set the stage for working together versus digging in heels and saying, I feel threatened by this, or, whatever. So
okay,
Kelly,
good.
yeah.
Well, I'd say that the other entities to meet with are library, tourism, senior center, and then the first responders like the police and EMS. And that would cover the majority of the city to have a seat at the table and working together on this, drafting this, co-creating it.
Okay. And I seem to recall in previous discussions that there are some like online tools or resources that have been identified, like purchasing, sustainable purchasing, collaborations out there. Is that being looped into this? Because it sounds like what I'm hearing staff telling us they want is tools and systems that make it easy for them to do the right thing. And it seems like that's what's happening around, everywhere that's trying to look at this. And so there must be some regional or national resources to assist that.
Yeah, to respond to that, Kermit, there's a very consistent request for some sort of guidebook or document that would tell the many people who purchase various kinds of supplies in our city government that they are in fact getting the greenest or most sustainable product. And that's certainly something we as a group could work on and try to figure out how to get that, because it turns out that there are lots of people who purchase this, that, or the other thing. And it would be nice if they'd all have the same guidebook and could feel confident that if I've done this, then I've done my job on that task. So,
Laura, jump in.
And I'll just say, what I'm pointing us to is find it, this is the internet age, and it's like I can picture this kind of tool available for governmental agency purchasing. So we don't need to invent our own guidebook. We can have a website or software as a service that would.
Kermit, let's let Laura jump in if you don't mind.
Okay,
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, sorry.
I looked for that and I found, somewhat surprisingly, plenty of roadblocks. I looked first at the university system, which apparently there are state laws that you can't do some of this stuff that we want to do. So no sustainability guidebook existed. And so I started digging a little bit further, and it has to do with certain legislature, I believe, that kind of blocks some of this stuff that doesn't really, there's stuff that blocks the green agenda, I guess you would say, and made it difficult. So there is a lot of disparate information out there. Like we have a whole page from, who was it, Cross Plains, that has a ton of links. So we're kind of assembling a bunch of links, but those links, when you start following them, you get into information overload, and there's just tons of stuff. But looking at the university level, trying to look at the municipality level, trying to look at the state level, what we all agree we need is not out there and readily available in a user-friendly format, because in some instances it is against state law, at least for the universities and some stuff like that. So that's what I mean. It's messy. We're making it through. We're trying to do what we can.
Okay.
We're finding our path forward through that stuff.
Disappointing, but thanks.
Yeah. Okay. That was a great summary, Dean and Laura. Thank you. So is that good for today on that tonight? I think. Okay. Let's move on to agenda number 5, item number 5, please. Kelly, would you give a little background on this one?
Yeah, the committee of the whole is a meeting that's held regularly throughout the year, or when needs arise, where you combine common council with another committee like Plan Commission. And so the committee of the whole met, and that was Plan Commission and Common Council. And one of the agenda items, which stems from our city's strategic plan, is to look at streamlining city committees and commissions. We have a lot of city committees and commissions, and Common Council would like us to look at ways that these could be streamlined, or just garner feedback from the committees on how it could work more smoothly, or what committee members think of how it's set up currently. And so there are 3 questions that were given to city staff to present to their committees that they staff. And we are to have you look at these questions and provide any feedback that you have on these questions. And I can type them up, and then I will give them to Yatun, who will pass them on to Brian Gadow, the city administrator. And then they will collate them and provide the feedback to Common Council. I know that, like, the first question, evaluate the committee liaison position if your committee has any. I don't believe our committee has any committee liaisons, but that's where a committee member also serves on a separate committee to be the liaison. And John Schaefer is District 1's Alder liaison for our committee, but some committees have joint designations where they serve on both Parks and Rec and Plan Commission. And so it's like a useful synergy between committees that need to know what the other committee is doing. So we don't have any formal committee liaisons. But that's the type of questions that these ask.
Regarding number 2, I know I talked to one person who thought that they thought the monthly frequency was useful, but that maybe we could drop December, because December is a frenzy for holiday. So that's an idea. I personally, my idea, which I could take or leave, I don't feel strongly about it, but was maybe, dropping the July meeting. For a lot of people are in summer breaks, but I'm not tied to that. I don't feel strongly about it. So what are your feelings, group, about, the frequency of the meetings that we have? Fine with the way they are? You like the December drop? Deb, go ahead.
I think there's too much information to go every 2 months. It's just your staff report. There's so much going on that I think we would be missing out if we weren't meeting once a month. So,
Okay, Laura?
I would agree with that. That was my thought too, that we never end early. And it's because there's a lot going on. We can't get everything done. There's not enough, bandwidth. In terms of dropping it on December, I'm fine. I don't feel strongly either way. That would be fine with me. The pro for doing that is, like you said, I think we have a shortened meeting, which is kind of nice. And we just got done what had to be done. The con would be it is the last meeting of the year. Sometimes we use it to set up for what's going to happen in January and February. Like, I think we talked a little bit about, I don't know, the budget or something at last minute. But I agree with Deb that I think we need to have it monthly,
okay,
even if we drop a month here or there.
Okay, Kermit?
I concur with what's been said so far regarding meeting monthly, and add an additional consideration. That is, if we go to, say, every other month, then we have continuity and involvement issues. It's like, it's one thing if you miss a certain month, but if you miss 1 out of 6 versus 1 out of 12, it's a totally different impact, I think, on the total involvement of all the committee members. So I think there's a value to having 12, so everybody gets at least 10. Is that what we're shooting for? Something like that.
Well, would you be okay with dropping December?
I am torn for the same reason that Laura, or really reasons Laura cited, that I think there are end of the year things that we sometimes need to address. And if anything, we might want to talk about doing something different with January, because we always end up falling on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. and have to do some scrambling to reschedule. So that would be an alternate thought if we're going to drop a month. That
Okay.
might be worth considering.
Okay, Kelly, then Deb, or I don't know if I should go Kelly first and then Deb. I'm not sure. Deb,
Well, it sounds like it should be as needed. So if we need this December meeting, we do it. If we don't need it, we don't do it. Or the January meeting. I mean, I think you can say we could skip 1 month as needed and leave it at that. Then it's flexible.
that's good. Kelly?
Oh, just a quick comment to say, like, I don't know if for the lens you're looking at these questions through, it's not that council wants to reduce as much as possible for everyone. I think it's more like there are some committees that rarely have agenda items, and so meeting once a quarter might work really well for them. But I don't think we need to, like, necessarily, if you're not ready to, I don't think you need to decide tonight, okay, we're gonna decide we're only gonna meet these months. I think it could just be continue as needed, and we can, as a committee, make those decisions to take off December, and that's always fine. As a committee, you can make that decision. I think this is like a bigger picture of all the cities and committees and commissions. I mean, I'm biased, so I recognize when I say this, I'm biased, but I think the Sustainability Committee is probably the most active committee in the city and does a lot of work outside of the monthly meetings. And it's a really critical time with the climate crisis, and there's all this funding available. So I should probably not advocate for the committee. You can all decide how you want to answer these questions, but that's my 2 cents.
So I actually don't know. I feel like that sounds great. Agree. On the third one, I feel like I personally don't know enough about the other committees to know. I mean, I don't feel like I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like we don't want to slide under another committee, and I don't know what other committees could potentially slide
Yeah.
within sustainability or under sustainability or whatever, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Kelly, do you have any, oh, Kermit?
Well, I was just going to agree with you as far as keeping sustainability as a distinct committee, in part for the reasons we've already cited for why we want to continue meeting on a monthly basis. There's a lot happening and a lot that we want to encourage to happen. And I don't think that we would gain by consolidating. It would tend to compromise our flexibility and agenda range. So I think as far as the consolidation question, I don't see an advantage or value to consolidating with another committee. It does loop me back to the first item, though, and that raises the question of, do we want to consider formal or informal liaison relationships with other committees so that we can engage in the cross-pollination that we've talked about periodically, as far as spreading the green to other committees and discussions and not just limiting it to sustainability.
Dean, you're up next, but I'll just quick
Yeah.
comment on that,
Yeah.
that for me personally, I love the idea of being a liaison and, synergistically collaborating with another committee. I just personally don't have the capacity to join another committee. So that's my feeling. Dean.
Well, that was exactly what I was going to comment on is, if we had a liaison on public works, we might be more abreast of, for example, the budget requests starting out in, early, a year in advance, really. And oftentimes the rest of us don't hear about those possibilities until far later in the budget process. So there might and the airport tend to be a little bit treated a little bit differently. And both have large impacts on the environment. And that might be another place for liaisons. So,
Laura?
I mean, I agree with what everybody has said, because I think to be a good liaison, that is going to take some time. And like you said, a lot of us are already doing stuff, and who has time to do it? I'm just commenting that I'm thinking it's almost a position in itself. Like you could almost, I don't want to say hire, but we could have one, you could have one person on the committee that's kind of their job. They're not asked to work on, policy, or they're not asked to working on, this part or that, but that they just liaison and report back. That might be something, bigger. I don't know.
Yeah.
More to do with city administration on, okay, if we want to be a city that incorporates sustainability throughout, we need a sustainability coordinator that does that, but somebody who does it at a strategic level, that might be something else. So it seems to me, I like Kermit's idea that, we don't necessarily need to consolidate. I think we're an important committee given the tone of the times. And then the liaison is a really good idea. We should have one. I just don't know if we, as the committee sits right now, have the bandwidth to do that.
I actually have a thought. What if we invited members of other committees like Public Works or whatever, not the staff, but a member of the committee, even the chair or somebody, to come and have a 15-minute slot on our committee meeting, on our agenda, just to give us an update on what they're doing, what they're up to. That wouldn't be a long-term commitment. It's literally a one meeting, 15-minute commitment. That's just a thought and idea. I will say, when I even though I just said I love the idea of a liaison, and I do, it just occurred to me that when I was working with this, I was at the state of Wisconsin, the Economic Development Corporation, for 3.5 years. And I will say there was a liaison that was jointly 50-50 funded by WDC. And then I'll just say a large external partner or large external organization within the state. And that person sat at a high level in both places, but there was little to show for years from that position. So, because there's just no accountability or no responsibility anywhere. So that's one follow-up thought I had for that. So Kelly, do you still have a comment? No, Kermit? Oh, you're up, Kermit?
Yeah. The concerns that have been raised are concerns I share, as far as, do we have the bandwidth? Gee, it's a nice idea, but who's going to do it? And that's why I think doing some creative lateral thinking, like Krista, your idea of, well, maybe we invite somebody to come to our committee meeting, and that establishes a liaison relationship, even if there isn't a formal regular liaison. And likewise, if one of our committee were to invite themselves to sit in at a Public Works meeting and perhaps take 15 minutes to say, offer some thoughts, that might be a way where we don't overload our bandwidth, but take a step in the direction of kind of helping cross-fertilize, cross-pollinate, and generate some more empathy and insight.
Go ahead, Dean.
Actually, I just have to say, my wife was on Public Works for a long time. And frankly, their agenda is dramatically longer, and the reading is hundreds of pages for every meeting. So adding 15 minutes to their meetings, even though it's what we really ought to be, we really need to be linked in. Maybe we have to find some way to do it outside of the meeting process. I don't know. So I've gone to both sides of this argument now, and but
Right.
I suddenly thought about those those meetings, and they are intense and long. So.
How's that for feedback, Kelly? Oh, Kermit, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, by way of feedback, if I can be allowed to recap, it's like frequency of meeting, monthly, with option to decide as a committee to cancel January or December. Committee consolidation, no, we have plenty to do that we think is valuable and we want to work on. And committee liaison position, I think we need to put it on the back burner, but maybe keep our thinking caps tuned into the question of how can we establish better rapport or connection with other committees, especially ones that have agendas that really impact the sustainability question, like planning and public works and water.
Good, Kelly, for the feedback? Okay. We good? Are we good on this agenda item, I think? Sounds good, okay. Let's move on to number 6, Madison Metro Bus Pass. What do people think? Like the idea, not like the idea, not sure? Deb?
Well, I have a couple questions. I did talk to Dick before he left on his trip to Arizona, and he had some definite opinions. So my question to start off with would be, would they be employees in the city living in Madison and need to get back to Middleton? I mean, well, how are they using this bus? Why are they using this pass? Are they going to meetings in Madison and then have to get back to Middleton? And then with that, does the bus provide routes that are easily picked up for somebody in Middleton to get the bus, to make it convenient for them to get to wherever they're going? So Kelly would know that, right?
Well, this is I really meant to do a deeper dive into this and find out more information. I learned last week about it, and then today was a day. But so I don't have like my ducks in a row to discuss this with a lot of detail, but it was I don't know about the bus routes and how that would serve individual employees. But the idea was that the HR was approached, probably by Madison Metro or the city of Madison if Middleton wanted to join this program. And we don't have, we didn't budget for this in last fiscal year's budget process. And there's no, deadline for doing this or anything, but the operating budget is very, very tight for Middleton because of our levy limits. We can't easily increase operating budget. Even, people squabble over, $1,000, $2,000 in our operating budget. But because of sustainability committee has a small operating budget, it might be something we could run a pilot program in and see if there's any uptake from city employees. And I thought about it briefly, and you could, there's options where you could buy a certain number of cards for employees and then have them available for use both to and from work, no matter where they live. Some people live in towns that, not Madison, and some people live in some prairie. And then there's also, you can buy 10 ride cards, which we could also have available in City Hall for, I have a lot of meetings in Madison, and I tend to either carpool or take a vehicle from the fleet in Middleton or drive my own car and get reimbursed, but I could be taking the bus for those trips. I think it might be a way to incentivize people to take the bus because it's a perk that the city offers, and it also shows like we want to promote bus ridership. I think it would depend on how it was rolled out and the communications around it and the reasoning behind it and the incentivizing the program. Could be an educational thing. But ultimately, the committee could decide or not to fund a certain portion of it, this year to see how it would go. We may get some useful data that, no one used it, or quite a few people used it actually, and more people are interested in it. I don't have the data, in the city of how many people already take the bus or walk or commute. That could be a project in itself, which would be interesting.
And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that Dick wanted it known that he is against this because he doesn't think it's the Sustainability Committee's job to give our funds for city employees' benefits. So I'll leave it at that.
Any other thoughts? And thanks, Deb. Any other thoughts and opinions? Kermit?
I can share Dick's skepticism or concern about the benefit side. As an ongoing funding situation or arrangement, I think that would not be acceptable, though I would be willing to entertain a pilot project where we would be using some seed money to prime the pump for something that might then be taken over by more conventional, staff funding sources. But, I'm just, at the same time, as much as I want to support Madison Metro, I mean, for commuting, it's one thing, but I don't know how many people commute. And like Kelly was saying, we really don't have the stats. How many people would be interested? How many rides would they be likely to want to take? How much would that cost? And so I think we do need to get some sort of back of the envelope polling anyways, before we make any kind of commitment one way or the other.
Do you think it'd be helpful if I did a survey of city employees to gauge interest in this? Like, if the committee was willing to support 12 cards or some level of bus ridership, who would be interested in taking part in this? Just to see what employees say.
Do you
Right.
think
Helpful.
Yeah, it would be helpful. Is there any concern that if you do that and they know about this, and maybe they already know it's public, but and then we don't do it, then they're, that's a morale thing. Just a thought, just plain devil's advocate about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I mean, a survey and just more information, it sounds like, is a good idea, whether you want to do a formal survey or informal survey. Is everyone okay if we just leave that with Kelly to manage internally? I'm seeing nods. Okay, let's do
Yes.
that. So Kelly, however you think. Thank you. So let's move on from this one for tonight. And why don't we add this to next month's agenda? Kelly, you can tell us next month.
Sure.
Is that good? Okay, thank you. Okay, recycling center hours. Next agenda item. I think the increased hours would be fabulous personally. Because when I can't go on Saturday and then I can't go the next Saturday, I have to wait another week, and I don't like stuff sitting there that needs to go. Laura.
I agree. I looked at the hours and kind of liked how they're all different times of day. So it's Saturday morning, 8 to noon, Friday afternoon, 1 to 4, and Wednesday it's like 4 to 7 or something. So you hit all different times and you hit all different days. My question was, are they asking for any help from us, or just do we think that's a good idea? Like, who's going to man those extra hours?
Right now, I think they have the capability of adding these hours on Friday, these 3 hours with staff. They eventually would like to move to having Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday hours. But right now they don't have the budget secured, but I think they're looking for feedback and support so that they can take this to the Public Works Committee and Council and be able to, you know, to show that they've taken this to other committees who are interested in. And so I think they were interested to see if the committee thought that 1 to 4 on a Friday would be helpful, or if you felt very strongly that it should be evening hours on Friday or some other hour. I mean, they're not looking for every option available known to humanity, but just some feedback so that we can provide that, and they know that other committees and citizens have looked at this and thought about it a little bit about the hours.
Deb, did you talk yet? Or Laura, are you trying to talk? I can't see.
I was just going to say, has anybody asked like citizens what a good time or day was? I just thought, okay, we've covered 3 different times that might fit in a variety of people's schedule. But like you said, oh, if I miss, you know, Wednesday, I'm screwed until this day or whatever. Is Friday a good day? Have they looked into that? Or would Monday be a better day? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they decided the hours, but I think part of it also had to do with staff availability, and they decided that Friday 1 to 4 would work for them at this point in time.
Deb, did you talk? Do you still have your hand up? Or is it Lynn? Should we go to Lynn?
I do.
Deb, you're muted again. Let's go to Lynn while you figure it out. Yeah. Okay.
I think increasing the variety is good. Since the pandemic, people work all different types of hours. And I think as it relates to sustainability is you want to prevent items from going into the dumpster if they miss the visit, which does happen. I see it in apartment dumpsters quite a bit. I've seen, you know, large items, wheelchairs, you name it, cat trees, couches trying to be jammed into an apartment dumpster. So I think creating additional options for people will prevent that stuff from going to landfill.
Fabulous. Okay. Deb has a comment, but we will wait for that. Deb, you're up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I don't know why this keeps happening. So I agree with Laura. If they're providing nighttime, you know, morning and afternoon on 3 different days, I think that's great. If that's all they're asking for, there's no monetary requirement or anything that they're asking for, then yeah, I think it's a great idea and pass it on. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're good with that one, right? I don't see any others. Perfect. Oh,
What kind of response would Kelly like us to give? I mean, is this informal feedback sufficient, or do we want to say, by motion of the Sustainability Committee, we endorse the plan, or what would be helpful?
I think just informal feedback is fine. I asked if they needed a motion or approval, and they said, no, not really, but we'll take this feedback and get approval at subsequent committee meetings.
Okay. So for the record, I also think it's a good idea.
is it easy? Do we skip a step for everyone if we just do a motion, if we get a motion now and do it?
I don't even know if you need a motion. I'll send them the feedback from the notes, and I think it's good.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Work initiatives. So Shreya is gone tonight, but I will just, this is a big topic and I don't know that we necessarily want to get into it. Let's cover everything else before we dive deeper into this. But I did send a letter to the Middleton School District Board advocating for, and I did it based on our discussion at the last meeting, advocating for the expansion of the athletic facilities, particularly the equity issues and the Title IX violation, but that we preferred natural grass turf versus artificial turf. And then you actually heard Kevin during the public comments earlier mention that the artificial turf passed barely. I did watch that school board meeting. There was a lot of back and forth discussion about it. The next step for this is the City of Middleton Plan Commission. So that's where that's at. Earth Day event. Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, Christy, just to clarify, all right, so you're saying that the artificial turf has been approved by the school board?
Yes.
But that now needs to go to the City of Middleton Plan Commission?
That's correct.
And they have the right to approve or disapprove, or what's?
It needs to be approved by the Plan Commission before they can have the artificial turf.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
That's what I thought. Lynn.
So I heard from a citizen about the school district has their own sustainability plan. I believe it's from 2021. And the city's is from 2016. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or it was updated in 2018, I think.
We have a 2022 to 24 sustainable city plans.
So as it relates to the turf, if the school district has a sustainability plan, is it, a large document that was written but is kind of
Excuse me.
is it a large document that was written at one time and then shelved a little bit and not being used on a ongoing basis to patrol stuff like purchase of turf and things like that? So if somebody has access to that plan, my interest in it is seeing how much information overload there is in that document. So if it's hard to follow, I would be interested in looking at it from a graphical standpoint to make it easier to follow. And I don't know what my boundaries are as the city addressing a school district sustainability plan, but if it's a public document, I wouldn't mind looking at it. So that's me communicating some input from a citizen.
Perfect. Laura?
Yeah, my question was just, you mentioned that it's going to the City of Middleton Planning Commission. You wrote that letter, which I thought was pretty good, going to the the committee at the school board. As the sustainability committee, can we write a letter to the commission? I mean, you made a lot of good points on a lot of different dimensions. I don't know, is that an option? I mean, what is the next step here?
I would think this committee could write, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think we could even forward that letter. I can correct the one S, that I'm still, irritated about that, Laura, that I should have caught that. But Laura is our writer and, what do you call it?
I've read Grammarly too much.
Yeah. But she caught one little minor thing that would make it read better, one letter. But I would think we could forward that. I will say to this group that it was disappointing when I watched the comments of the final vote from board chair Sheila Hibner. She said that essentially, I believe she was, well, I'll just say what she said. My letter was out there. They had my letter, and I was representing not the city staff, not the city, but our committee. And I explained what our committee is. We are, volunteer appointed. And she made the comment that she had spoken with Mayor Emily Kuhn about this, and that or she had spoken with Mayor Kuhn, I want to say it accurately, and it's on the video if anyone wants to go watch it on the recording, but that sustainability is a long-term thing. And so it's long-term and the turf is for right now. And so essentially we needn't worry. People needn't worry about it because sustainability is long-term and this turf is for right now. So I did not, I was disappointed, more than mildly over that statement. And interestingly, I ran into Mayor Kuhn at lunch the next day in the Prairie Cafe. And I mentioned that, that was said by the Board of Education chair, and Emily said, no, I did not say that. That is taken out of context. I myself Emily wanted the same things that our committee wrote in the letter. So that was a misrepresentation on behalf of the Board of Education chair. The other thing I heard that was disappointing to me was the vice chair saying, well, when we put in the first turf 10 years ago, nobody had a problem with it. So I don't understand why they have a problem with it now. I think everybody in this committee can see why that statement's a problem. So if the committee would like to, I would be very happy forwarding. I don't know how we do this, if we want to make it so we're all signing here, or we send it out, because now we have it on the agenda. We could actually transition that letter because it's on the agenda tonight and make it not just from me, but from the committee. It's up to you all whether you want to do that or not. We could forward that to the Plan Commission.
I'm certainly in favor of that.
Yeah, I'm, well,
Favor of it.
yeah,
Deb?
Deb has her hand up. Let's let Deb
Yeah.
try and talk.
One thing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, before I keep talking. One thing that Dick mentioned is that he was talking to, I don't know, somebody in Madison who said that Breeze Stevens Stadium has artificial turf, and they have a infiltration system underneath the turf so that it's all of that stormwater stays on site.
Yeah.
And he said, is that going to happen with the fields in Middleton High School? Because I think if we can at least get that and get infiltration on site rather than just runoff to Pheasant Branch Creek, that would help.
Yeah.
One of the issues at least.
Yeah, that would help. It's interesting you say that, and he said that, and I agree. I would love that too. It's funny. I only have a sample size of one for this comment, but another family in Middleton has 3 boys that play soccer, and they play at Breeze Stevens Field, and they comment on how that's the worst turf. So I don't know if it's just old turf, maybe not kept up turf. Maybe it's, they did the filtration, but it's cheap turf, or who knows, but I don't know. It's all.
Well, all the turfs do have to be replaced every 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they get hard before the end of it. So,
Yep.
I mean, so that, I don't know how long they did the cost, the life cycle cost. When it comes up to 10 years and you add another $1.5 million.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it's
Well,
also
yeah.
expensive.
Yes, I'm actually quite dismayed as well, because if you look at the amount, a fair amount of this turf is actually for like $1 million, is just simply for the boys baseball. I feel like this is inequitable. The girls softball turf was like, I don't have it in front of 200,000 or 300,000 or something, whereas the boys was another $1 million for the artificial turf. So I just didn't like that personally. But Laura?
I mean, you did mention in that article, or an article in your letter about the equity, you could add to it and put that information in now for, for example, $1 million, since you have the numbers, is for the boys turf, and just a couple 100,000 for the girls turf. If you want to go artificial, where's the disparity? That would at least cause a conversation. And
Yeah.
you could also you could mention Dick's point about, if artificial is the way to go for health reasons, although I don't think it is, or some other reason, safety, then we advocate that it at least manage the runoff. But you already pointed out that the runoff, all the plastic runoff, I mean, we're eating like a credit card a month.
Well, it's
and,
airborne too. It's
you know,
it's not
yeah,
just
we're
water.
all sucking it down. So it's, you know, it's not quite as they're acting like the cost is maybe lower than it is, shall we say, when you include health, when you include
yeah.
having to get more turf and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Tony.
Yeah, I would just note that even with a infiltrating subsoil, all that does is slow down the passage of chemicals and microfibers. So they would infiltrate soil and groundwater and eventually get to the lake, only will take longer than if, you know, you just have a downpour and it's washed into the creek and flows, you know, down to the lake. So the infiltration helps, but, you know, I mean, you're still creating a polluting environment.
Yeah. So, I don't know if we just need agree. I mean, do people, I'm happy forwarding the letter that I sent with actually the 2 additional points about the 1 million for the boys baseballs inequitable in itself, you know, could be viewed as, and then the drainage system underneath, similar to Breeze Stevens. Do people want me just to forward that with my name on it again, or would this group, would you like me to add this group's, you know, on behalf of the committee,
Yeah.
not just me, now we're on behalf of the committee.
I would do on behalf of the committee. I mean, I'm okay with that. I don't know if everybody else is, but we've
Yes,
talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any objection to that? Which would be okay, is anybody,
Do you need a motion?
I think so, maybe, yeah, that might be good, yeah. So is
Kermit
that a
makes a
motion?
motion.
yeah,
Well, are we saying we're going to, let's see.
I
I
said the
move,
committee-
I move that,
Yeah.
Christie repurposes her school board memo for the planning commission, is it?
Plan commission, yep,
Plan commission, and that it be submitted as coming from
the
the
committee.
entire sustainability committee.
Okay, so that's a motion.
second that.
Second,
I could
All in
second
favor?
that.
all in favor?
I,
Passes, great. Okay, I will do that and I will send a copy.
And I just popped in a link in the chat about an additional issue that's a negative. I don't know whether you brought it up specifically, and that's disposal
Hmm.
of the used AstroTurf. And basically Pennsylvania's become a dumping ground for AstroTurf. They have farm fields filled with rolls of AstroTurf that were going to be recycled, but the recycling company had environmental problems. And anyway, so you can do some more digging online if you want to get more details there.
I
but
can add that to the point too. I put bullet points on that letter. I could add that.
yeah,
the other thing on your equity idea, Christie, is if they put in a natural field for the girls softball
Mhm.
and didn't do anything to the boys field at all, they already have a perfectly fine natural field. They would get that much more money for use to do important climate related projects that would generate that much more money. So if equity can be met with a natural turf field.
Yeah. Okay, Deb?
The whole point, though, for the school district is the use of the field. You can't use a muddy field.
Yeah.
And that's, Bayard wants to use it. All the teams want to use it for whatever the sport is at the time. And you can't use a muddy, grassy field. And that's the bottom line for the school district. So it isn't, I don't think it's about the money or anything. It's about the usability.
And part of our role is to bring into the discussion of usability, sustainability. And so what's the total life cycle cost? And let's see, used artificial turf is expected to produce 1 million to 4 million tons of waste in the next 10 years, and it is nowhere to go, according to solid waste industry analysts, is one of the lines from an article I linked. So I think that's a sustainability, a hidden cost. Yeah, it's not muddy, but what are the other costs that we're dealing with here? So I hear you, Deb, and I hear that that's an issue of concern, but we're waving the flag saying, yeah, that's an issue, but we need to actively weigh it against these other costs to the environment and to society.
Right, and they're renting the fields out to other people too, so they are making money on the fields. But I'm just saying, when we make our arguments, we need to keep in mind what their argument is so that we can
Right.
honor it appropriately.
Deb, how would you like me to phrase that? I can run the letter by you too, ahead of time.
That's fine. Why don't you do that?
Okay.
So I don't know if they've retracted their original estimate of hours of use by other organizations, but the first report submitted by those supporting the artificial turf option had more hours of use in it than there are daylight hours in the, it was preposterous. And I don't know if they ever revised it. The Middleton 350 group did point out the problem, but I don't know if anybody ever actually changed it. So.
Didn't they have lights in their estimate?
I saw that the sales pitch deck from the turf company increases those hours in order to drive the cost way down to make it more advantageous than natural. And the hours were so high, they seem to be optimistic. I would be curious to talk to other communities like Sun Prairie. After installing the turf, they actually were able to rent out that many hours.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if the football, how many hours is the football field used by other organizations?
I thought the school district was here to teach the kids in the district, not rent it out and be like this business of artificial turf.
Just point of order regarding the agenda. Do we want to continue on this item, or do we?
We do, thank you. I'll run it by you, Deb, the letter. Okay.
And I'll look at it too if you want.
Oh, yes.
And
How could I forget? Okay,
right.
Thank you.
And Christy, for what it's worth, you're counting on Deb and Laura, but if you send it to everybody, then we can forward any response via Kelly, I guess.
Sure, or just respond to like me and Laura
individually,
and Deb only. Okay, we'll do. Okay, Earth Day events. Is this just sort of an announcement, Kelly, that you have on here for Earth Day events, or am I missing? Did I forget about something?
Yeah, these are for under the work initiatives. I tend to just add all the things that are on our plates so that we can talk about them as things come available. So if there's a month when there's no update, just you can say no updates this month. This shows the two events that we do have scheduled or that are scheduled, not necessarily by the city. Community Church has their annual Earth Day events from 10 to 3, and I will be tabling, and then it would be great to have someone else maybe table for half the day. That's what Carol Phelps, who organizes that event, suggested, and that we pick 2 or 3 main thrusts for our table instead of inundating people with 20 flyers of everything we're doing. So that's that event. And then Stonehorse Green event is on April 20th, and that is put on by a consultant hired by the city right now to organize Stonehorse Green events. So I'm just putting this on the agenda in case anyone has any ideas or things that if you wanted to add on to that event, that would be something we need to start working out right away with the arts committee and other people who are involved in that event. Otherwise, it's just simply an announcement that this event will take place from 1 to 3 at Stonehorse Green, and it's mostly organized through that consultant and also the arts committee. They're doing some kid-friendly art type things at that event. I think it's still coming together. So if the committee wanted to have a table there or have some small event, you could attach yourself to this already promoted event.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Good Neighbor Fest.
Nothing
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Paper shred event is, I believe, just a reminder, right? Okay,
Yep, this was just organized. The date is set.
Okay.
So that's happening.
great.
Is
Blending
there
Bill?
any staffing requirements or volunteer needs that you're wanting us to be aware
Well,
of?
we will need about 5 volunteers, and recycling staff will help. I will be there, and then typically I get 4 or 5 green team volunteers from the school, from the high school. If any committee members wanted to volunteer, that's always open, but I don't feel like at this point I'm desperate for those volunteers in June yet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Blending Valve, is that just
I did get some feedback from Metropolitan Sewerage District about reducing salt use and water softeners by putting on blending valves. MMS, just for Lynn's information, MMSD reached out to Middleton to potentially do a small pilot program in Middleton to see how residents responded to having blending valves installed on their water softeners, which would basically just cut down on the percentage of salt going into their systems. And they're looking for feedback, how people feel about it, how contractors who would put the blending valves on, how they perceive the project. So I will get you the most recent information I have from MMSD and send that out to the committee. And if there's any action items, we'll vote on that next month.
okay? Thank you. Deb, do you want to talk about Sustainable You?
No news. The first one, as I said earlier, was going to be David Drake, and that's not coming up until May. So no news.
But they're planned, and thanks to Deb, they're planned, and they'll be good
Yes.
topics.
They're
Yeah,
planned.
and I just want to give a shout out and a round of applause, Deb, for your pulling that all together. That, like Kevin was saying earlier, it looks like a great lineup. Oh, quick question, again, as far as volunteer needs or staffing, I know in at least one or more previous Sustainable U's, we rotated sustainability committee members in as kind of like the hosts to just kind of get people, a variety of faces out in front of the public. Is that something you are planning on, or what are your thoughts there?
That would be great. I don't know. I looked on my calendar and I mentioned some of the dates I couldn't do it. Kelly said that she could do it, and I wasn't part of the last planning committee for Sustainable Use, so I didn't know that other people would like to host. So yeah, I could put a sign up out there if people want to sign up to host different months. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. We talked about no May. I think we're good on that one. Is that right? Okay. Utility flyer. This is one I would like to cover, actually. We don't need to go into depth tonight. But what I'm thinking is ideal is a 3-member, 2 or 3, it can even be 2 or 3 member subcommittee, a 2-week subcommittee. This is not an ongoing thing, but what we need is content for the utility flyer. We have the budget, the operating budget, money for it, and this would be information that would be good for all City of Middleton residents that pay a utility bill to get. But we have to actually do it pretty soon. So I'm willing to be a part of that. Would anyone else like to join that? And if you don't, that's okay. I can just come up with it, but
what's the deadline? What's the production schedule you're anticipating? Like, we want it in the which quarter we wanted to get it published into, and how far in advance do we need it done by?
Kelly, do you want to comment on that one?
The deadline for the spring April bill is somewhere mid-March. Last year it was March 15th, so it's really soon. So if you don't feel like can do that, then we would aim for the October bill, which would be more like I'd say late August, early September due dates. And we would have, you know, it's fairly pricey, but you could get, like we did last time, 2 full pages 8x11 in color, or you can do 1 page or half pages in black and white. There's multiple options. It's between, I think the way we did it last time, we had 2 pages front back, 1 page front back, and I believe it was, the price is around $2,700 for that to send out to all utility bill customers.
Deb.
If you do a spring one, maybe you could put the Sustainable You dates to advertise to the community.
That's great. Okay. The reason I don't want to postpone it is because last year we didn't even do it for the same reason. So I feel like if we kick the can down the road, August, summer, you know, we have an August, September deadline, the same thing's going to happen again. So like Kelly, if you don't mind working with me for an hour, and actually maybe Lynn, I could get you to pretty it up. We could
Yeah.
I could come up with the content even with or without you, and you can
Yeah,
make it
sure.
look gorgeous.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Put you on the spot there, right in front of everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I know. Okay.
I was gonna volunteer anyway.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, all right.
I would just put in a plug for it, including some IRA reference.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yes.
I did, you know, probably to a resource that would spell things out. So, because there's so much, but
Yep. Yep.
something to say, you too can take action.
Yep. Definitely.
And new hours at the recycle center, if
I
that's
love that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that gets approved
Right.
finally.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We have a plan. And Lynn, how, you know, do you mind if I follow up with you and we just try to crank it out in the next couple of weeks? Does that work with your schedule?
Sure.
Okay. And Kelly will help us get the exact dates and things. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. LED light bulbs. Ooh, Kelly and Deb, or yeah, Kelly and Deb, do you want to comment?
Just a quick update on that is Kelly and I are putting together packets of light bulbs, different wattages, equivalents, 40, 100s, and 75s. And they're probably going to end up with maybe 20 bulbs in a bag. And then those will go to the individual units for the residents to use in their houses or their apartments. But the thing that's a little concerning is 2 years ago, I think it was, Dick and I put all of our extra bulbs at the recycling center, and Dick went in there just before he left on his trip. And it appears there's less there now than there were when we put them there. So we're trying to figure out what happened to some of those bulbs. So, and the other thing that's not on the list, can I mention the Sustainable Middleton Awards? It's not on the list, or is that not okay?
Technically, you're not supposed to. Do you want to email the committee, the whole committee after this, or did we have anything about it before?
I can't email the whole committee, can I?
Yes, but people just can't respond.
Oh, they can't respond.
And just
Okay.
as long as you copy Kelly. So if anyone emails the entire committee, just make sure you copy Kelly so that there's a city record of an entire committee communication.
Okay.
It'll be unidirectional. Can't be facilitating dialogue to make a
Right,
decision.
that's,
Or
yep, right.
Oh.
Or just one person responds, we can't have like a whole side meeting that's not public. So, okay, unless it's like a subcommittee agreed upon type thing. Okay.
Kelly, did you want to add anything to the LED light bulbs, where they're going from packaging, or?
No, they'll go to 9 buildings with multiple units in each building. and probably the Lakeview Village apartments as well. So potentially like 26 units will receive a bag of bulbs.
Okay. Okay. So that's that for now. Do you want to talk about the intern, Kelly, Soul Smart?
Yeah, just an announcement that we've hired an intern for sustainability who will be going through our data, helping us get our data streamlined from MGE, from our utility, and also our fuel and everything like that. And they'll also be working on a Soul Smart designation, which streamlines solar permitting and solar for residential folks who are looking to go solar. It just helps cities go through a long checklist of everything you need to do as a city to make it as easy and clear, concise, and potentially easy to go solar as possible in your city. And he will start February 26th, and he'll be here for 2 months.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, Dean, go ahead.
Yeah, just a thought on that, Kelly. If those utility power bills and the like can be done department by department so that we can use them in the measures for the sustainability plan, implementation plan, that would be very, very helpful and be a big jump start.
Yeah, I don't know if we can divide them by department because there's so much overlap with departments. There's like 100 streetlights, and then there's each building with all of its many meters, and so I'm not, but we will be thinking about that for sure. Like, how can we chunk this out,
right,
and also have all the data, because we do need big emissions numbers overall, but then we also need to have subsets. Once you get it all into Energy Star portfolio, then you can run pretty specific reports.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful we'll be able to evaluate things more easily once we have all the data transferring seamlessly.
Well, this may help jumpstart that process, so that'd be great. So. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Deb?
So the compensation for the intern, that's coming from our 2024 budget, is that correct? And how much?
It is. It's 2 months, 9 weeks at $15 an hour, 20 hours a week, and $2,700.
Oh, okay. Which is about the 3,000 that we appropriated for last year that we didn't use, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for now? I think this was a good meeting.
For the standing agenda item for
well, let's
March?
let Tony go first, if you don't mind.
Okay, sorry. No,
no problem. No problem.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to kind of loop back to the staff report, the second to last item that really pleased me. And I wanted to congratulate Kelly, especially on the getting the grants for replacing the streetlights with LED lights.
Yes.
Kelly must be feeling pretty good that she went through that whole grant process and shepherded things through Public Works and Common Council, and then and now we've got the grant, and half the lights are going to be replaced, which is just really, really great news. And so shout out to you, Kelly.
Yeah, this grant came through back in June, and then we just haven't gotten the final authorization from the state legislature. It's a whole long story, which I won't tell, but now it's come through. But really want to give kudos to Common Council because they did an incredible 50% match. It wasn't required that they do 50%, but they chose to do 50% in order to get more lights transitioned more quickly. And not only that, but they also put an additional match in for 2024 in case there comes another grant round to do the other 50% of those streetlights. So I feel like council really supports this. And not only that, they looked forward and said, we're going to support it again in the future and make sure the money's already there so you don't have to worry about it this year. So really, like they were really proactive about that. So thank your alders.
And you and Kelly.
Mhm.
Okay. Kermit, you had a future agenda item?
Yeah, I was just realizing that we'd just mentioned the liaison idea as something warranting further decision making and discussion. And I just, whether it's next month or a following month, I just wanted to get that flagged as something that we want to return to, because I think it is potentially valuable, especially if we come up with a doable way. So
Yep. Okay. Deb.
Put on the agenda for the committee for confirmation for the Sustainable Middleton Awards. We'll have the potential winners at that time next month.
Great. Okay. 8:16. This it would, it's like long compared to recent, but short compared to past. So let's go with it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
move to
Second.
adjourn.
Move to adjourn in second.
Second and all in favor. Great. Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone. Have a
Okay.
nice evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.